how I sunk my life into debt. Before COVID-19 put the world on its knees, my life wasn't where I wanted it to be, but I was doing fairly okay. Perhaps just where God planned it to be at the time. I lived strictly on what I made, sometimes took out a small Airtel Money loan, or asked for help when I needed to survive for an extra week or two of the month. I was living the hustle of any other Kampala youth. I was renting a six-figure house for the simple but rather very crucial reasons that it was fairly safe in terms of security and was convenient as far as living in Kampala and accessing town is concerned. Sometimes I afforded pay TV, sometimes I couldn't. Sometimes I came through on my other responsibilities beyond my individuality. Sometimes I only managed partially and in some cases failed totally. But I was still trying. I was trying to be my own man. I was trying to climb ladder. It didn't always work out or go my way, but a big part of me remained hopeful that anytime soon I would find my breakthrough. And then everything went to shit. Not in a single day, but gradually, in ways I hadn't envisioned. Not even by a mile. I thought this was going to be temporary. Before the president sent the country into a national lockdown. Earlier I had received a phone call, the first of many, from one of my bosses notifying me of an indefinite work suspension due to a general lack of business. The tourism and hospitality industry were crumbling down like a house of cards in ways like never before. At least, not in recent history. Travel cancellations by foreign guests were coming at bullet speed. Soon, restaurants started to feel the hit. Other sectors were equally taking the heat. I thought I would soldier on for a month, or even two if I was to stretch my limits. But then the situation started to affect other businesses as well, putting a serious strain on incomes. Employers started to rethink their options. They felt the wind. Some even went into panic mode. Without business and much of reserve income, it was only justifiable that workers continued to get laid off since most businesses continuously survive on what they make a month. And just like that, other sources of income were gone too. When one door closes, another opens. I constantly told myself so. By now we were into April, and somehow I sailed through it smoothly. And then came May. My head and heart had now started to become heavy with concern. God continued to hold my hand steady and walked me through May like he had done in April. We ushered in June, and my worry spiked. A rent bill was hanging over my shoulder, but more importantly, I was concerned about my feeding, electricity, and water bills. And that's when I took out my first loan. Not to indulge myself, but just to survive. I couldn't borrow to pay rent, month in, month out at my then cottages, but borrowed to move into a slightly cheaper house. In between there, I got a couple of one-off cheap work contracts that enabled me to afford food, water, and electricity. Meanwhile, sometime in mid-May, government, through the LC1 chairman and LDUs, had made a brisk knock at my metallic door to deliver pasho and beans. Not quite sure, though, the weights were 6 and 3 kilograms respectively as promised. But ever since I left high school, after 8 years or so of having more of the same, I had part ways with the white delicacy and the protein-rich legumes. But be it as of it may, I knew well enough that now wasn't the time to be picky. Nonetheless, I pondered how a person who cooked on a kerosene stove was going to cook the beans, dried beans, that take ages to boil. The cost was too high to think through. But then again, imagine pasho without sauce. Not even my friend Pawanga would stand it in hard times. At least he would accord it some brassica oleracea var. Sabelica, Sakuma wiki. I tried to talk myself into buying my first charcoal stove, but the idea didn't sit well with me. In the end, I abandoned the beans, gave them out, and mingled my brownish flour. Accompanied it with eggplant for sauce. Somehow June was done, and I don't know how exactly, but July is a month checked off this year's calendar. Nonetheless, all wasn't well at heart. I had accumulated a reasonable debt. After auctioning off a few of my in-house assets, I had already started scanning through my house for something else to sell, but all in vain. Nothing would count for much. The shit had hit the fan anyway. Physically, I look fine, but the thought of my debts and life ahead in general continue to eat me up. The good thing is that my creditors aren't on my neck, but they have remained me more than once of what I owe to them. I intend to pay every last penny, for I consider myself a man of my word. What slasher would I be if I wasn't anyway? For months, I wasn't worried. I was concerned. But by mid-August, I was worried. Worried, wondering whether I'll pull through it all, whether I'll come out on top, whether there's even a way out. By the tail end of August, I'd grown hopeless. A failed job interview didn't do my hope any favors. Nevertheless, I was yet to accept what appeared to be the destiny of this journey. My faith, too strong to tumble, was on the edge of the ledge. I feared for the worst, that sooner or later I'd not recognize myself. I feared that against my desire, I would soon become the next prodigal son. The bills never stop coming, and we have this inevitable and addictive habit called eating. Rich or poor, broke or hard up, you must find a way to feed that stomach. The alternative is starving to death. Whereas it kept on getting harder each day that passed by, something concrete from years of faith and cemented by personal desire and intuition, something kept on telling me that my story wasn't done just yet. Not by a long shot. I constantly wonder what the next chapter of that story was going to be. But my guess was only as good as diminished hope. Early into September, I started packing my bags one by one. More painfully, though, I was pondering my planned but not scheduled phone call conversation with my folks. How I was going to break it to them in request to come back home. But as luck would have it, midway into the second week of September, I got a monthly paying job that came with a signing bonus of 3 gorillas. It pays cents on the dollar, and I'm not 100% sure about its future prospects, but it's a start. A room to breathe, and as the old adage has it, half a loaf is better than nothing. I'm not returning to my folks' house, at least not just yet. Hi everyone, this is Robert K. Circles. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Give us a like on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought. We love hearing your feedback. And if you know someone who might enjoy the show, please share it with them. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more listeners. Thanks again for being a part of the Robert K. Circles community. Until next time, take care.